Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AUA Focus Series podcast channel powered by the AUA Media Lab. My name is Armen Avakian. I am a lecturer at the MBA program here at AUA. With me is my guest, Karen Mkoyan, and we're going to talk a little bit about digitization and really cool stuff like that. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Armen. Thanks for having me.
So I'm obviously, from my accent, I'm American Armenian. I've been here for a long time. And I feel like you and I have had like the opposite sort of experiences in life in general, right? I was born there, raised there, and then I came here like late 90s. Right. And then you were kind of born and raised here, and then you kind of left, and now you're back. Give me a little bit of your backstory about that Vienna sort of experience.
Yeah, sure. Armen, absolutely right. So I was born here, raised here, etc., school and university. But then right after the university, I moved to Vienna, to Germany first, then to Vienna to continue my studies, and then eventually got a nice job offer there and stayed so almost last 20 years, I want to say. I was not living here. I was working in Austria, Netherlands, France, etc. Obviously, I was being back and forth, right? But yes, there's a bit of a change if you compare Armenia of 20 years ago and now.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, good and bad, but overall, huge changes.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this, a couple of days ago. We were chatting. One of the things that I really liked and I was kind of interested and curious about is when you came to a crossroad point where you had to make a decision between continuing more on the science and academic side of things or the commercial side. Right. Give me a little insight. I'm sure our viewers are going to want to know on where to go with that, right? And how you make that decision.
Yeah. Well, I must say my scientific career is also interesting, right? I started with computer science and then sort of used this knowledge to use the computer science, applied computer science, informatics, this knowledge in somewhere else in bioinformatics, right? So on how to do computations, etc. And then for my PhD, it was more between the physics and the computer science. So the prototypes of the modern cloud systems called computational grids. This was the topic of my PhD. So it's quite diverse, very interesting, but super diverse, right? And then at some point, I had to make really a decision. Do I go into the science, having a camp and a bike, etc., or as the scientists call it, you go to commerce, right? Commerce meaning anything else but
science.
But science, right? So yeah, we had a bit of a chat with my professor. He said, "Hey, there are, you're on the crossroad. There are two avenues you could choose, but I think you're gonna go towards the commerce." And that's what I eventually did. And I landed in a company, in a teleco company, the largest teleco of Europe, serving around 30 million-ish customers. So huge scale, humongous scale. And this is what I was doing for the next 13, 14 years.
That's awesome. So one of the things I remember that you were telling me about was you and your team building when you were back in Armenia, when you were in Petakan Hamasar, that kind of thing. Right. And you were building some sort of internet.
Yes.
But kind of like.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah,
that blew my mind, I have to say. Like it just blew my mind. That's like what, early 90s or something, right?
That's late 90s, maybe early like 2001 or something. And I was obviously starting in the State University, but also, say, quote unquote, working on campus as a system administrator. And you have to imagine everything is new. Internet is new. Anything you do is like revolutionary. Access to the information, to the documentation, not as easy and obvious as today, right? So what we've done really is two cool things, two cool projects. One is we've created a university webmail for our professors. They go to the conferences, etc., etc. Hey, now you have the opportunity to check your emails remotely. Wow, how cool is that, right? And then the other
things we take for granted.
yeah,
Now it's
now
just
it's
like
granted, right? Now you
just
have
a
it on
push
the phone.
notification on your
Exactly.
phone.
But
Yeah.
back then it was sort of there was a certain wow effect. And then the other bit, what we've done is we've created some sort of a, you call it a blog nowadays or a website or something. So it was.
I like it's like what you call it, a blog or whatever.
Yeah,
now.
I can't put my finger on how you call it nowadays. But the idea was like a students' community website. Students.aua.am. You could register there. You could even ask for a university email. So we were trying to sort of build a community of students within those frameworks. So really, really cool. And
That's awesome. I mean, that's pioneering work in Armenia at the time, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So hit me with this. Vienna, I'm assuming, I mean, especially in those times, for going from here to Vienna is probably like a massive culture shock. Germany and then Vienna, like culturally, is just so different. And then coming back 20 years later is probably another culture shock. So out of all of this, why come back?
A great question. Look, for the past, I want to say like 4 or 5 years, I'm following Armenia's digital agenda, digital transformation agenda very closely. And last few years particularly, there has been a good shift, tremendous progress in terms of the mindset, in terms of the priorities and the understanding. So I was trying to understand how can I be of a support, how can I participate, help, consult, any help. I'm here, I'm open, right? So I was exploring options, talking to people, etc. And then this summer, an interesting opportunity popped up. I don't know if you want me to go further into the details of that. So the concept, the idea was to unite 3 telecos of Armenia and 10 banks of Armenia, create a company that will be providing digital trust services to the citizens of Armenia. So when first we started to talk about that, I was like, okay, that's
sounds cool. If 10 banks and 3 telcos are coming together,
solid,
something
right?
is
That's solid. I mean, worldwide, in Europe particularly, that's the recipe on how to kickstart a trust service organization, right? To that scale, 10 plus 3, this is very unique. I was in a conference a week ago, where I mentioned that, there was like, wow. guys, this is solid. This is a commitment of not a bank and a telecom or a post office. This is a very solid commitment, both in terms of the quality and the longevity of the project, right? So that was one of the aspects why it was interesting to me. The other aspect, like I said, I wanted to contribute to the country, and with this, I think there is more than enough contribution one could do. And then the third part is there is a very solid business case behind it, right? At the end of the day, it's a business. As well as in Europe, this is the hottest topic right now. There are discussions on how to structure the trust services around the electronic identity, digital signatures, etc., etc. There are these regulations. There was this EIDAS version 1 regulation that went live, is still live. There is the version 2 coming. So the hottest topic in tech around the electronic identity right now.
So you mentioned trust services like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
I know what trust services are, but trust services is something, it's new in the world in general. It's not really something that's been around for, hundreds of years. So it's a fairly new category in general. So just for the people who are, watching us and listening, what are trust services in general? Just like if you can, a quick description.
If I'm very quick, so anything. Okay, I'll roll back a bit. So a person, a citizen, has his or her identity, right? It's an offline identity, passport, ID card, etc. Right? being a citizen of a country, you're entitled to have this identity. Now, similar to that, there is the notion of electronic identity in parallel to your, say, offline or analog identity. There is the electronic identity. Based on this electronic identity, you can have services, which of course you can have in the offline and analog world. You can have the services like signing a document, sealing a document, putting a consistency timestamp on a document, authenticating yourself, etc. So, if you look to the electronic identity world in parallel to the identity world, then it's pretty much the same services that you have offline. You'll be able to have it online, and the provider of those services is called a trust. So the collection of the services is then trust services. The provider of those services is the trust service provider.
So I want to jump in here because in terms of product description, that was great. It was really short and to the point. But I feel like a lot of people that are watching are not really going to get it unless we give a use case. So I have a really cool use case as an example. One of my friends, this actually happened. So one of my friends this past summer was in the Maldives. He went there for his honeymoon, and he used his credit card, and the bank blocked it because it looked fraudulent, right? He's randomly some guy, right? But it was actually him, and he was in the Maldives. So he called his bank here in Armenia. He's saying, it's me, it's my card, I'm here. Can you please unlock it? And there was an issue that he wasn't able to verify that he is that person, right? So like it could have been me calling with the card in my hand and saying, yes, I'm this person, open the card and I start using it.
Right.
So the bank is reluctant to unlock the card because they can't verify his identity. And he's stuck in the Maldives with basically no money. So we had to, find a solution just to get him some cash somehow so that he can survive. But if there was trust services, right? If he did have an electronic identity, hypothetically, what could happen is that he calls the bank. The bank says, "Okay, hey Valod, I'm Valod. Hey Valod, I need to verify that it's you." So the person at the bank presses the verify button basically on his screen. The guy that's in the Maldives, Valod, gets a push notification on his phone. He presses the button and says verified. So he gets a little signal. Yes, verified. Okay, Valod, how can I help you? Yeah. So hypothetically, and this is not only just for verification, but it also could be transaction based. Correct. Send me money, do this transaction. Okay, here's the transaction. Okay for you. Yes, presses the button, sign. Valod gets a little push notification. He does his thing, sign. It's signed and the transaction happens. So if they had these kind of trust service solutions here in Armenia, we probably wouldn't have that problem.
Correct.
Now, that's one of the use cases. Now, obviously, you can take that and kind of run with it and imagine all of the different. So basically, any place that you are being verified, you're giving your ID or you're signing.
A strong verification.
A strong verification.
The word strong is very
a strong verification. Important. Any place you're giving your ID and any place you're signing anything could hypothetically then just be done on your phone or your computer or wherever you are.
Device, yes.
And even more so, no matter where you are in the world, because ultimately your ID is in cyberspace now, so you can actually do those transactions. That's pretty cool.
It's if I may continue the line of thought, it goes way beyond than that, right? Yeah. So at some point you could have the elements of your digital identity in one way, one form or the other, like a driving license. Mm-hmm. You can have it in your phone. It's an active, a valid proof of your driver license. You can verify your age, not in your case, but but you know what I mean. Like all those attributes that make you, you have a mechanism to strongly identify and prove your identity online. Yeah. Right. Online or by using a mobile device. So yes,
that's pretty amazing. I understand that and who is kind of leading in this? Which countries are we looking at in terms of benchmarks, or what are we trying to take from who?
Great question. So historically, Estonia is at the forefront because
of like digital citizenship,
digital anything. Yeah. Everyone says Estonia. And that's true. That's still true, right? because they have started very early. They have a fantastic blueprint, and it just works. There are some new players, for instance, who used the Estonia blueprint, right? Executed with a slight modifications to mobile first. And they are in a significantly better position than Estonia right now. So there is a huge knowledge in Estonia. We're collaborating with different companies. But like I said, in Europe overall, it's the hottest topic.
Yeah.
And we have cooperations and collaborations to those resources. That's one. And then the second element, why this is there is this unified framework, because there is a European regulation that basically sets the standard. The EIDAS I mentioned before, it sets the standard, so you cannot just roll out anything technically and call it a trust service.
Yeah.
You may call it a trust service, but then it's not qualified,
Sure.
it's not recognized, et cetera, et cetera. So to that extent, like I said, Estonia, Finland, but equally, I don't want to separate the other countries. The rest of the countries are making really, really good progress.
Awesome. So what does this mean in terms of, so a couple of questions really popped into my head. So I understand the process of it now. Okay, so we have some sort of digital identifying system. We can sign, we can do this, and we can do that online transactions.
Right.
So from my point of view as just a normal person in Armenia, I understand that because it's convenience, it's easy, everything is on my phone. It's probably even more safe because it's something that nobody can actually steal from you. It's not like a one-time password type of thing where the bank is sending 4 digits, and whoever has that 4 digits could hypothetically then do a transaction. It's actually linked to my person. So all of that I understand, but what does that mean for like banks and telcos and the governments and the people who are the business and the entity side of the equation here? Because I understand it from my point of view, but why would the banks want? The banks are working anyway. Like it's a system that's operating, right?
That's true. That's true.
I mean, more or less.
No, they do work. I think. I mean, there is in it for everyone, both the citizen and the private entities and the public entities. I'll give you a few quick examples. Right, for a person, at minimum, it's convenience. You don't have to go anywhere in person, stay in a queue. Verify your identity, sign a document on a paper or somewhere
else. You can be in a beach in Maldives.
You can be
you can
next to Valod, right? In Maldives. So that's from the person perspective, right? From the bank perspective, it's a cross-sell and upsell opportunity. You have a loan, you want to buy a new product, build this functionality in your app. You don't have to call your customer to the bank. It's a few clicks, done, right? And for the public, right, it's public services. I don't know, you're selling your car, you name it, you're buying an apartment, etc. You don't have to go through all those authorities to make that happen. And to that extent, by the way, the Information Systems Agency of Armenia is running a fantastic program called 12 Life Events, right? So they have selected 12 life events like birth of a child, I don't recall them all, but 12 life events. And they have looked at that through the lens of, but now we do it digitally, right? So your baby is born, what steps, what instances you need to go, what authorities you need to be in contact with. Now, in order to go to those authorities in person, this whole journey is digitalized. So between those steps, you are going to need to sign a document, and you could use a trust service. You need to verify your person. You use
I can't wait. Both of my kids were born here, and it was hell.
So you know the nightmare.
Right? It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare scenario in terms of go here and then go here and then go here and then
exactly.
Cool.
Get the blue stamp because the one you got is wrong.
Exactly. It's the wrong one or whatever.
It's the wrong one.
He's not here right now. He's out to lunch, and that just drives me nuts. So my thinking in terms of Armenia in general. So we talked about like the entities and the population wide. So it seems like this is a multi-stakeholder sort of situation. We all have to kind of buy into this and make sure that we're going towards the same thing. So what my thinking was, and I've told you this, but I'm just curious what your opinion is when it comes to the development of Armenia in general, economically specifically.
Right.
We're kind of in this push where we want to make sure the IT sector has a bigger role in the overall GDP, right, in the overall economy, and kind of grow that. And that will then also give legs into, all of the other sectors of the economy, because once this is it's a horizontal sector that crosses all of the other sectors. And my thinking is, I'm coming from more the startup world, right, and this sort of startup ecosystem, etc. And I've always had this kind of internal feeling that no matter how many, it's great to have startups, and the startup ecosystem should be growing, and that's awesome. But that's not enough to actually shift an entire economy into, IT mode, if you will. Something more is required. And I feel like when we had this discussion about imID, the trust service provider here, that could be one of the key shifts, because if we have a more digitized population in general, that is then a much better backbone for an IT push in terms of GDP versus having successful startups that
here and there, yes,
here and there, which is more like a mushroom effect versus having the entire boat basically shift into IT mode. And I feel like something like this, if you can get enough scale, 800, we have 2.2 million, 18 plus citizens in Armenia. If we can get 1 million, 1.2 million, etc., onboarded onto this electronic identity and electronic services sort of area, that creates a whole different world for us to then boost, economy in terms of IT, right?
Correct.
I mean, what's your position?
No. You had it all right.
I don't want to say anything bad about the startups. I'm from there, but
but
it's not
in
enough.
our case,
it's
exactly.
It has to happen, but it's not enough.
The scale is different, right? And then the services, it's a new habit. We're trying to build a new habit. Obviously, it takes time, right? So we're planting the seeds today, and we're building the vehicle. But the user of our services is now in school, right? Of course, others, so the other age groups, of course they will use it. But then as we go, as we build the services, the quality, the trust, the security, it works, it's great, it's cool, it always works. Then it's an entire mindset shift, really.
So when it comes to mindset shifts, and this is a key question from my point of view, it seems like, at least I'm coming from the U.S., in the U.S., when it comes to the business world, there's always the category, so the sector, and the sector is operating under the idea that per capita consumption needs to go up, right?
Right.
And then underneath those, there's the companies that are competing. But there is a sectoral sort of cooperation always, right, through either business associations or some sort of organizations and so on. At least when I came here, and I've been a consultant here for a while, so I've worked in different industries, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel like companies are willing to or want to cooperate to boost per capita consumption, the habit part of things. They're just kind of trying to get a bigger piece of the pie instead of making the pie bigger, right?
Right.
But then you guys came in and you have 10 banks and all three telco. How did you pull that off?
Competing organizations.
How
right?
did you do that? That just seems impossible for me in my head.
It is, and that's the whole beauty of it, right? Like I mentioned before, apart from the business component, there is this component of giving back, making something great for the country. So there is this understanding and notion within the banks and the telecos as well. Right? Yes, solid business case. Yes, they need those services. Yes, otherwise they would have been developing that on their own, alone, and competing, etc. But like you said, making the pie bigger. So that clicked, and now we're working around the bigger pie. And then the second, for me historically, right, in Armenia, banking and the IT teleco was really strong. So I think we have all it takes to make this happen with the quality we're after, with the paramount quality, with all the standards, trustworthy and credible and secure.
That's amazing. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. This was great. I hope this electronic sort of ID, electronic signature, I mean, from my point of view, at least from a day-to-day, my life would be so much easier if I had something, that tool in my hand. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. Let's get this thing, up and running and see where we can take Armenia. It's a great thing for Armenia in general as well. Thank you very much, guys, for sticking around the AUA Focus Series podcast, powered by the AUA Media Lab. One last thing, if you've seen the podcast all the way to this point, you're liking what you're seeing, you're liking the content, so don't forget to please subscribe and share this content. It helps us out a lot here at the AUA Media Lab. See you next week.